Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 53.
We have to start with the spatial geography of the story because it sets up the entire conflict.
Yeah, the graveyard.
Right. We are introduced to the wealthy Zhang family in Ye County. They are the local elites, part of the rising merchant and landowning class, and they have just made what they believe is the ultimate investment.
They've acquired a brand new graveyard on the sunny side of the eastern mountain.
So to understand why this land acquisition is the inciting incident, we need to dive into the mechanics of traditional Chinese geomancy, or, feng shui.
Specifically the concept of the jiacheng, which translates to the auspicious resting place.
Because in our modern context, a graveyard is just purely a place of memory and disposal.
Right, you just buy a plot. But in the cultural architecture of 17th century China, an ancestral tomb was the literal spiritual engine for an entire family lineage.
A spiritual engine. I like that.
Yeah. The specific geography, so like the orientation toward the sun, the gathering of the wind, the flow of subterranean water, all of that was believed to hoard environmental tiller or life force.
So buying this plot on the sunny side of the mountain wasn't about securing, a nice view for the deceased.
No, not at all.
It was a calculated move to lock in intergenerational wealth.
Precisely. If you bury your ancestors in a location with perfect feng shui, their spirits are pacified, and they act as a conduit. They channel that immense cosmic luck directly down to their living descendants.
So the Zhang family is trying to purchase a permanent monopoly on good fortune.
Right. But here is where the mechanics of Ku Songling's universe kind of rebel against earthly wealth. The Zhangs own the physical deed to the land, but the spiritual real estate is already claimed.
Because out of nowhere, passers-by start hearing these disembodied voices shouting from the empty graves on the mountain.
Yeah, these ghostly voices are just yelling, "Leave quickly, don't disturb the nobleman's residence."
Which is such a wild image. I mean, the supernatural world operates as this massive, invisible bureaucracy.
It really does. These ghosts aren't mindless spirits haunting a spooky house. They are low-level functionaries, basically cosmic security guards, enforcing a mandate from a higher spiritual authority.
They are literally securing a perimeter.
Exactly.
It's a concept we could almost call spiritual escrow.
Right.
The Zhangs might have the earthly title, but the cosmic title deed has already been transferred to someone else. And the universe's security detail is aggressively clearing the property.
And Patriarch Zhang, being a pragmatic, wealthy man, initially just ignores this.
Right. He's like,
Eh.
I bought the land, I'm going to use it.
Exactly. But then the bureaucracy escalates. He starts having these recurring, terrifying dreams. The local spirits appear and warn him that this graveyard is actually Mao's auspicious resting place, and they demand to know why the Zhang family is occupying it.
And following these dreams, the Zhangs are hit with a sudden streak of inexplicable bad luck.
Yeah, they start losing money, getting sick, all of it. Finally, terrified of further financial and physical misfortune, Zhang relents and moves his family's graves away.
Okay, we have to pause and look at who this Mao person is because it highlights the profound subversive nature of this whole story.
Absolutely.
The Zhangs represent the absolute top of the human social pyramid. But who holds the cosmic title deed to the mountain? Chancellor Mao of Yi County.
Right. However, at this point in the timeline, he isn't a chancellor at all.
No, he is a child. And his father is a cowherd.
A cow.
A guy whose entire livelihood involves looking after other people's livestock.
It is so difficult to overstate how low a cowherd was in the Qing dynasty social stratification. I mean, the traditional hierarchy placed scholars at the top, right?
Right.
Followed by farmers, artisans, and then merchants. A hired cowherd didn't even own the land he worked. He owned nothing. He was practically invisible to the state.
He possessed no ancestral hall, no social leverage.
Nothing. Yet the divine bureaucracy has reserved the most powerful geographic battery of luck in the region for this specific destitute family. The cosmic order is actively mocking the human economic order here.
That creates a massive logistical problem. I mean, the Zhangs moved their graves out, leaving the excavation pits empty,
Right.
but they still own the land.
Yeah, they hold the deed.
And the cowherd still has zero money. He can't afford a square foot of dirt, let alone the prime real estate on the eastern mountain. So the prophecy exists, but the mechanics of fulfilling it seem impossible.
Which brings us to the terrifying fatalism inherent in this kind of folklore. Fate is not this gentle, benevolent force that hands you a winning lottery ticket.
No, it's really not.
It is an inexorable physical law, like gravity, and it will use whatever violent means necessary to arrange the pieces on the board.
And the mechanism it uses here is just horrific. So one day, Mao's cowherd father is out working on the mountain, and this severe, sudden rainstorm hits.
A massive storm.
Yeah, and desperate for shelter, he runs into the abandoned Zhang tomb, the very pit the ghosts had cleared out earlier. But the storm triggers a flash flood. A torrent of water rushes down the mountainside, pouring directly into the excavation hole.
And before the cowherd can scramble out, he drowns in the mud.
He dies exactly in the pit meant for a coffin.
The juxtaposition here is staggering. I mean, the fulfillment of the family's ultimate cosmic destiny requires the immediate, violent death of the father.
To the human eye, this is the ultimate tragedy. A family at the bottom of the social barrel just lost their sole provider in a freak accident.
Right, they're ruined. But from the perspective of the cosmic bureaucracy, a necessary transaction has just occurred. The father had to die in that exact geographical coordinate to initiate the flow of coines that will eventually elevate his son to the rank of chancellor.
I want to look at the psychology of the survivors here, because Mao's impoverished mother is now a widow with a young child. She can't afford a funeral. She can't afford a coffin.
She certainly can't afford a graveyard.
No. So she is reduced to going to the gate of the wealthy Zhang family to beg. She begs Patriarch Zhang for just a tiny patch of land to bury her husband right where he died, simply because she lacks the resources to even move the body.
And the sheer desperation of her situations is just palpable. Widowhood in 17th century China without familial wealth was essentially a death sentence or a fast track to absolute destitution.
Right.
But when she arrives at the Zhang estate, the narrative shifts from cosmic horror to a masterclass in ancient risk management. Zhang asks the poor widow for her surname, and she says, Mao.
You can just imagine the blood draining from Zhang's face in that moment.
Absolutely.
He remembers the dreams. He remembers the streak of bad luck. He remembers the ghosts yelling about Mao's auspicious resting place.
So Zhang immediately travels up the mountain to investigate, and he finds the drowned cowherd lying perfectly, organically in the exact center of the auspicious tomb.
Wow.
The universe didn't just reserve the land, it physically dropped the rightful owner into the slot.
Now, I have to question Zhang's motives in what happens next. He allows the burial to happen right there. He grants them the land, but then he asks to meet the young boy, the future Chancellor Mao.
Right.
When the boy arrives to thank him, Zhang is reportedly so impressed by the child's demeanor that he decides to take him into his own household. He provides him an elite classical education alongside his own sons.
Which sounds incredibly generous.
Right. On the surface, this looks like incredible charity.
Hmm.
But isn't Zhang just being incredibly cynical here? I mean, this isn't altruism. This is a hostile takeover of someone else's cosmic destiny.
That is a really brilliant way to frame it. It is absolutely a calculated spiritual investment. Zhang is a businessman who just watched the universe execute a flawless, terrifying, hostile takeover of his land.
Yeah.
A foolish man would have fought it. He would have ordered his servants to drag the peasant's body out of the pit to reclaim his property. But Zhang understands the physics of his reality. You cannot litigate against the mandate of heaven.
You just can't win that lawsuit.
Exactly. So, since he can no longer use the physical land to elevate his own ancestors, he decides to aggressively attach his living family to the boy who is now guaranteed to rise. He is buying shares in Mao's inevitable success.
It's venture capitalism, but the collateral is karma.
Yeah.
And think about the psychological whiplash for young Mao,
Oh, yeah.
Your father drowns in a muddy ditch, leaving your family to starve. Days later, the local billionaire adopts you, hands you the keys to an elite education, and completely changes your socioeconomic trajectory.
It's a massive shift. And Mao grows up acutely aware of his origins, but he's constantly being groomed for greatness. However, Zhang's attempt to merge their destinies hits a massive wall when he decides to arrange a marriage between Mao and his eldest daughter.
Right, because marriage in this era was rarely about romance, was it?
No, it was a socioeconomic contract negotiated by the heads of households. So Zhang offers his eldest daughter to Mao. Mao's mother, deeply conscious of the class divide, she actually tries to decline, feeling unworthy.
But Zhang's wife insists.
Yes, and the adults lock in the contract.
The adults lock it in, but the eldest daughter completely rebels. And we need to look at her reaction because it drives the moral lesson of the entire first half of the story.
She absolutely despises Mao's background.
She doesn't care that he's a brilliant scholar studying in her father's library. She doesn't care about the ghostly prophecies her father is terrified of. She only sees the mud on his father's shoes.
Right.
She bitterly declares, I'd rather die than marry a cowherd.
She represents the exact societal flaw Pu Songling was critiquing. In a period of rising commercial wealth, People were increasingly judging value by immediate surface-level status.
Yeah.
The eldest daughter lacks the visionary pragmatism of her father. Her
Hmm.
father sees the trajectory, the inevitable rise fueled by the auspicious graveyard. The daughter only sees the current balance sheet.
She's just looking at the present.
Exactly. She is trapped in a rigid, materialistic worldview where a cowherd is always a cowherd.
And she maintains the stance all the way to the brink of disaster. So we arrive at the wedding day. The stakes here are astronomical. The groom, Mao, arrives at the Zhang estate.
The whole town is watching.
Right, the traditional musicians are playing. The elaborate bridal sedan chair is waiting at the door. It is a massive public spectacle designed to broadcast the family's alliances and harmony to the entire county.
But inside the inner chambers,
Inside the inner chambers, the eldest daughter is staging a full strike. She refuses to put on her makeup. She sits in the corner, her hair an uncombed mess, just crying hysterically.
the breakdown of the social order here is catastrophic for the Zhang family. We really have to discuss the concept of mianzi, or face.
It's more than just being embarrassed, right?
Oh, this goes far beyond mere embarrassment. A public refusal of a parental marriage arrangement is a profound violation of zhao, or filial piety, which was the foundational virtue of Confucian society.
Oh, wow.
For a patriarch like Zhang, having his daughter refuse to enter the sedan chair while the groom is waiting outside, it is a complete destruction of his social capital.
You can visualize the absolute panic. The text says the father is frantic. He pleads with her, then he gets furious. But the angrier he gets, the louder she cries.
It's a nightmare for him.
He's running back and forth from the inner courtyard to the front gate. The servants are whispering that the groom is ready to leave. Zhang is bowing, sweating through his formal robes, begging Mao to wait, making up excuses about how her clothes just aren't ready yet.
Right.
Then he sprints back inside, trying to force his daughter to move. The source material explicitly says he was anxious enough to die. He is totally paralyzed.
He is caught in a vice between the cosmic destiny he is trying to secure with Mao and the earthly stubbornness of a daughter who refuses to participate in his spiritual investment strategy.
Yeah.
And it's at this exact moment of total systemic failure that the younger sister steps out of the background.
Now, the younger sister isn't engaged to Mao. She's essentially a bystander to this entire train wreck.
Yeah.
But she watches her older sister crying in the corner.
Yeah.
And she steps in. She scolds her, essentially saying, if you don't want to go, why not let me?
She points out that the older sister wasn't even the one explicitly promised in the initial negotiations.
Right, she asks why her sister is destroying their family's reputation over this.
Her intervention introduces a fascinating philosophical contrast. The parents hear her generous spirit, and desperate to avoid complete social ruin, they pull her aside and secretly beg her to take her sister's place.
And the younger sister agrees without hesitation.
Yes, and her reasoning is crucial. She says, parents' orders, even to a beggar, I wouldn't refuse. Plus, why assume he'll starve to death?
That second half of her sentence, why assume he'll starve to death, is so incredibly sharp. It's practical optimism.
It reveals a highly sophisticated intellect. The younger sister embodies two virtues that her older sister lacks.
Okay, what are they?
First, strict filial piety. She will sacrifice herself to save her parents from a catastrophic loss of face. But second, she possesses independent analytical judgment. She doesn't just blindly accept that a cowherd's son is doomed to poverty.
She sees the potential.
Exactly. She evaluates Mao's character, his dedication to his studies, and perhaps she even understands the gravity of the graveyard prophecy better than her sister does. She correctly calculates that human potential is dynamic, not static.
She is essentially shorting her sister's materialistic worldview and going long on Mao's human capital.
I love that analogy, yes.
So the family executes this frantic swap. They strip the bridal clothes off the older sister, dress the younger sister, throw the heavy red veil over her head, and hustle her into the carriage. Now, I have to stop here and look at the mechanics of this. Does Mao really not notice he just married the wrong sister?
Well, in the context of a 17th century arranged marriage, it is entirely plausible. The bride would be completely covered by a thick red veil, not just during the procession, but throughout the entire ceremony.
So he literally couldn't see her.
Right. There was immense noise to scare off evil spirits, strict ritual movements, and often the groom had rarely, if ever, seen the bride's face clearly before the wedding night anyway.
Wow.
Furthermore, Mao was a scholar, likely deeply distracted by his own pressures, and the Zhang family deliberately rushed the handover in a state of panic.
So they get away with it. And according to the text, once the dust settles, they actually have a very harmonious marriage. Mao respects her, they get along well, but Pu Songling includes one highly specific physical catch.
Yes, this detail is so important.
The younger sister is virtuous, she's practical, she literally saved Mao from public humiliation, but she has a physical flaw. The text refers to it as Qijian, meaning her hair is incredibly sparse, thin, and yellowish red. And Mao, despite everything she did for him, is quietly bothered by this.
The inclusion of this physical flaw is a brilliant narrative anchor. In traditional Chinese medicine and physiognomy, thick black hair was not just a standard of beauty, it was considered an external indicator of strong, healthy internal qi and vitality.
Oh, interesting.
By giving her this flaw, the author humanizes her. She isn't an idealized, flawless fairy tale princess, but more importantly, it exposes a latent flaw in Mao's character.
Yeah, because he's judging her.
Exactly. He has spent his entire life overcoming the stigma of his surface-level origins, yet he is secretly judging his wife on her surface-level appearance.
It shows that despite his elite education, he still possesses a seed of the very vanity that caused the older sister to reject him. And as his career begins to take off, that seed of vanity is going to metastasize into a massive problem.
It really is.
Let's fast forward a bit in the timeline. Mao has completed his local studies and is traveling to take his provincial exams. We need to establish the gravity of what this means. This isn't just a tough final exam for a degree.
No, the imperial examination system, or Qiju, was the central nervous system of the Chinese Empire for over a millennium. It was the sole legitimate pathway to political power, immense wealth, and elite social standing.
It was everything.
It was a brutally unforgiving meritocracy. Millions of men spent their entire lives studying, memorizing the Confucian classics, practicing the highly rigid 8-legged essay format. They would be locked into tiny individual cells for days at a time to write these exams.
Just brutal pressure.
The pressure was unimaginable. Passing the provincial exam made you a jurin, an elevated status that protected you from certain laws and guaranteed a comfortable life. But taking first place, becoming the Jaiwan, that was a generational triumph. It guaranteed high office and immense power.
The stakes are literally life and death.
Yeah.
So Mao is traveling toward the examination city, and he stops to stay at an inn in a place called Wangxi Village. And this is where the cosmic bureaucracy, which has been quiet since the flash flood, suddenly re-enters the narrative.
They've been busy behind the scenes.
Very busy. The night before Mao arrives, the innkeeper has a vivid dream. A god appears to him and delivers a highly specific message. A Jaiwan, a first-place exam winner named Mao, is arriving. Later in life, this man is going to save you from a terrible disaster. You must treat him with the utmost respect.
The architecture of destiny here is staggering. The divine authorities are managing a timeline that spans decades. They already know Mao's exam results, and they foresee a future crisis in the innkeeper's life. They are proactively brokering an alliance between a future high official and a rural innkeeper by manipulating the innkeeper's dreams.
And the innkeeper wakes up thrilled. He waits by the road, and when Mao arrives and gives his name, the innkeeper treats him like royalty. He provides the best food, the finest room, and absolutely refuses to accept a single copper coin in payment.
Mao is totally bewildered by this VIP treatment and asks why.
The innkeeper, being an honest guy, simply tells him the truth. He recounts the divine dream, telling Mao that the gods themselves have guaranteed he will take first place in the upcoming exams.
Which sets up the ultimate philosophical trap. How does the human mind process the revelation of guaranteed divine success?
Well, Mao's mind processes it by becoming immediately overwhelmingly arrogant.
Yeah, he fails the moral test spectacularly.
He sits in his luxurious room eating free food, and his ego inflates to match the prophecy. He thinks about how famous and powerful he is about to be, and then his thoughts drift to his wife back home. And remember, this is entirely an internal monologue.
Right, he doesn't say a word out loud.
No. He just thinks to himself, my wife's hair is so thin and sparse. When I am a rich, famous official, a high-ranking Jiwan, my peers will laugh at me for having such an ugly wife. Once I succeed and get my rank, I should replace her with someone better.
It is a breathtaking betrayal. This woman absorbed the humiliation of her sister, entered a rushed marriage to a cowherd's son, and protected his dignity.
Yes.
In the exact millisecond Mao believes he has transcended his social class, he plans to discard her simply to protect his future image. He has internalized the exact same materialistic vanity that he suffered from as a child.
Mao travels to the testing center, puffed up with his toxic arrogance, fully expecting to breeze through the grueling exam and take his rightful place at the top of the list. He writes his essays, submits them, and he fails.
He completely bombs it.
He doesn't just miss first place. His name isn't anywhere on the passing list.
The psychological devastation must have been absolute. He had divine confirmation of his success, yet he failed.
He is so deeply ashamed and humiliated that on his journey home, he can't even stomach the thought of facing the innkeeper at Wangxi village. He literally takes a massive detour, choosing a harder, longer road, just to avoid the man who treated him like a future king.
Yeah.
Now, let's analyze the mechanics of this failure, because this is where the story introduces the concept of the thought crime. Mao didn't divorce his wife. He didn't abuse her. He didn't even speak his plan out loud. He merely entertained the thought in the privacy of his own mind.
The policing of internal intent is deeply rooted in Neo-Confucian philosophy, particularly the ideas championed by thinkers like Wang Yangming, who argued that the mind is principle itself.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
In this philosophical framework, there is no separation between knowing and acting. A corrupt thought is the genesis of a corrupt reality. Furthermore, influenced by Buddhist concepts of karma, the cosmic bureaucracy doesn't just weigh physical actions, it weighs the karma of the mind, body, and speech.
We all do this, don't we? Mentally spending the promotion money before the ink is dry on the offer, or arrogantly assuming we've outgrown the people who helped us get to where we are.
Oh, all the time.
Mao committed the 17th century equivalent of mentally drafting his divorce papers before his first paycheck cleared.
And the cosmic response was instantaneous. The divine bureaucracy is not bound by human timelines. They saw the corruption forming in his internal character and immediately intervened.
So they pulled the plug.
Yes. The failure at the exam was not bad luck, nor was it a failure of his academic ability. It was a targeted, deliberate embargo placed on his destiny by the underworld to prevent a morally compromised man from acquiring state power.
But the brilliance of this folklore is that it isn't purely punitive, it is correctional. The universe doesn't destroy Mao, it forces him to undergo a massive ego death. 3 grueling years pass. Mao spends those years at home, living with the wife he had secretly plotted to discard, steadying under the crushing weight of his failure. Finally, the next cycle of provincial exams arrives. He sets out on the road again. And this time, he doesn't take a detour. He travels right through Wangxi village.
And the innkeeper is there.
He is waiting by the road, just like before. He enthusiastically invites Mao in. Mao is profoundly embarrassed. He bows and says, "I am so sorry. Your dream 3 years ago was a lie. It didn't come true. I am a failure, and I am ashamed that you are treating me so well again."
The innkeeper's response is the fulcrum upon which Mao's entire life turns.
The innkeeper shakes his head and says, "No, the dream wasn't wrong. The gods came back to me in a second dream. They explicitly told me that you failed because you secretly plotted to abandon your wife for a new one. You weren't a victim of circumstance. You were stripped of your rank by the underworld for your hidden cruelty."
We have to imagine the sheer existential terror Mao experiences in this moment, the realization that there is no privacy in the universe.
Not at all.
That his most shameful, silent, fleeting thought was intercepted by the divine authorities, judged, penalized, and then casually broadcast to a rural motel owner.
The text says Mao was paralyzed, standing there like a wooden statue. He is shaken to his absolute core. But in that terror, there's genuine revelation. He truly repents. He understands the horrifying magnitude of his own hubris.
Right.
And the innkeeper, playing the role of a rustic spiritual guide, encourages him. He says, "The gods told me this. If you genuinely correct your heart and behave with virtue, you will still claim first place."
This illustrates the concept of karmic redemption, or Bao. The system is ultimately designed for moral cultivation, not just blind vengeance.
That's a comforting thought.
It is.
Yeah.
The universe delayed his success precisely to force this internal correction. Once his character is capable of wielding power without inflicting harm on his virtuous wife, the embargo on his destiny is lifted.
Mao travels to the examination center with a completely reformed, deeply humble mindset. He writes his exams, and the prophecy fulfills itself. He takes first place. He becomes the G1.
But the story doesn't end with academic success. It provides a stunning physical manifestation of this moral correction.
Right. Mao wins the exam, and back at his home, his wife experiences a miraculous physical transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Her sparse, thin, yellowish hair suddenly begins to grow rapidly. It grows out thick, vibrant, and green-black like clouds. The text says the transformation doubled her charm.
This is a vital symbolic resolution. In this cultural context, the physical world is deeply tethered to the moral world. The flaw in her hair originally mirrored the latent flaw in Mao's character, his superficial vanity.
Oh,
When Mao's internal character is healed through his repentance and newfound humility, the cosmic tension in their marriage is resolved. The rapid growth of her hair is the physical evidence of restored cosmic balance and the influx of auspicious ki.
he finally values her true virtue.
Yes, and the universe rewards that clarity by aligning her physical form with her internal beauty.
I find the mechanics of this universe deeply satisfying, especially the role of the innkeeper. The gods don't use burning bushes or high priests to communicate with Mao, they use a guy running a bed and breakfast. The divine bureaucracy outsources its performance reviews to a hospitality worker.
It democratizes the supernatural, doesn't it? It suggests that true insight and connection to the cosmic order are not restricted to the elite or the highly educated, but are accessible to honest, everyday people who just serve their communities.
Now, we've tracked the rise of Mao and the younger sister, but the narrative requires us to examine the control group in this moral experiment, the elder sister.
Right, the one who started it all.
The one who initiated this entire chain of events by screaming that she would rather die than marry a cowherd.
Her trajectory is the precise, tragic inversion of Mao's. It demonstrates the devastating long-term consequences of a worldview built entirely on surface-level valuation.
After refusing Mao and forcing the family into the secret swamp, the elder sister eventually gets what she thinks she wants. She marries a different man, a local who comes from established wealth.
So she got her rich husband.
She did. On paper, according to her strict materialistic metrics, she won. She secured the current wealth and avoided the cowherd. But her judgment was fundamentally flawed. Her new husband possesses wealth, but he lacks virtue, discipline, and ambition.
Which is a terrible combination.
Exactly. He is deeply lazy, and over the years, he slowly and systematically squanders their entire estate. The elder sister, who started out so arrogant, watches her status erode until her husband dies, leaving her completely destitute.
It is a harsh critique of the limitations of human calculation. She tried to optimize her life based on a static snapshot of wealth, completely ignoring the dynamic variables of character, potential, and cosmic destiny.
She bet on the wrong horse.
She chose the man whose trajectory was pointing sharply downward, while discarding the man whose trajectory, fueled by the Jiasheng on the eastern mountain, was guaranteed to point upward.
The psychological toll of this miscalculation just destroys her. She lives in poverty, and word reaches her that her younger sister, the one who took her place in the sedan chair, is now the wealthy, respected wife of a famous high official.
The irony is just brutal.
The older sister is consumed by a shame so profound that whenever she is walking on the road and sees her younger sister's entourage approaching, she physically runs into the fields to hide. She cannot bear to face the physical manifestation of her own disastrous choice.
Every time she sees her sister's luxury, she is violently reminded that it was literally placed in her hands first, and she threw it away because it didn't look prestigious enough at the time.
And Mao's trajectory continues to climb. He passes the final, highest tier of the imperial exams, becoming a jinchi, and enters the imperial court. He eventually rises all the way to chancellor, the absolute pinnacle of political power.
Right.
When he finally retires and returns home in unimaginable glory, the elder sister hits her breaking point. Consumed by bitter regret, spite, and total frustration with her earthly existence, she abandons society and becomes a Buddhist nun.
We must be careful not to view her decision to become a nun through a purely spiritual lens, though.
Oh, why is that?
In the socioeconomic reality of the Qing dynasty, joining a nunnery was rarely a calling of deep spiritual enlightenment for women of her background. It was often the final refuge for widows who had exhausted all economic support networks, or women who could no longer endure the extreme social shame of their ruined status.
So it wasn't really a calling.
No, it was less an embrace of the divine and more a total surrender to defeat.
But Mao and his wife, the younger sister, do not abandon her. They operate from a position of profound, secure virtue. They hear she is living in a struggling convent, and they send an emissary to deliver a gift.
This part is fascinating.
They send several rolls of incredibly fine, luxurious silk. But knowing the elder sister's volatile pride, they don't just send fabric. They secretly sew solid gold pieces deep inside the layers of the silk.
The psychology of this gift is brilliant. It is an act of deep charity disguised as a simple luxury. They anticipate that a direct handout of raw currency might trigger her pride and cause her to reject it.
Right.
So they offer something culturally elegant, silk, but embed the actual survival value, the gold inside it. However, it functions as a final moral test. It requires the recipient to accept the gesture, to literally unfold the fabric of the gift, to discover the true value hidden within.
And the elder sister fails the test in the exact same way she failed on her wedding day decades prior.
Predictably.
The emissary arrives at the convent and presents the silk. The nun takes one look at the fabric and her old arrogance flares up. She flies into a rage, yelling at the emissary, "What do I need this for? If they want to help me, they should send money for firewood. I cannot eat silk." She aggressively rejects the gift and throws the emissary out.
It encapsulates her entire tragic existence. Her cognitive framework has not evolved a single inch. She is still completely paralyzed by the surface appearance of reality. Decades ago, she looked at a future chancellor and saw only a cowherd, so she rejected him. Now, she looks at a fortune in gold and sees only inedible silk, so she rejects it. Her absolute inability to look deeper, to unfold a situation and search for the hidden value, is the engine of her perpetual misery.
She is essentially a person who is handed a winning lottery ticket, but because the ticket is printed on blue paper and she hates the color blue, she shreds it, screaming that she asked for cash, not paper.
That's a perfect way to put it.
The emissary carries the rejected silk back to Chancellor Mao and his wife. They untie the fabric, find the gold pieces still sitting untouched inside, and they just laugh.
But it's not a mean laugh.
No, it is a laugh of profound realization. They understand that the elder sister literally lacks the internal capacity to accept good fortune. The universe is physically trying to hand her gold, and her own perception deflects it.
They realize that wealth and fortune require a compatible internal vessel. If the vessel is cracked by superficiality, the fortune simply leaks out or is rejected entirely. Recognizing this, they abandon the subtle approach and simply send 50 pieces of gold directly to the master of the monastery to manage her room and board, bypassing her entirely.
When the elder sister eventually learns what happened, that she held solid gold in her hands and threw it away because it was wrapped in silk, she experiences a crushing final epiphany.
Yeah, the realization hits her.
The text notes that she realizes she spent her entire life trying to avoid the bad and seek the good, trying to ruthlessly calculate her own advantage based on surface appearances, and it resulted in a completely inverted reality. She finally understands that human scheming is fundamentally impotent against the deeper currents of fate.
It is a devastating realization of her own limitations. Now, Pu Songling, writing as the strange historian, is meticulous about the architecture of his narratives. He ensures that every karmic thread is tied off.
Right. There's one loose end. What happens to the innkeeper in Wangxi village?
Well, the story concludes with a final, satisfying loop. The text briefly notes that years later, the honest innkeeper was falsely accused of serious crime, potentially murder, and was thrown into a brutal prison that looked like he was doomed.
But Chancellor Mao, now wielding immense judicial and political power, hears of the case. Remembering the man who delivered the divine warnings and facilitated his moral redemption, Mao intervenes. He uses his authority to demand a rigorous investigation, uncovers the truth, clears the innkeeper's name, and saves his life.
Which is the precise fulfillment of the very first divine prophecy delivered in the dream decades earlier. A Jiuan named Mao is arriving, who will later save you from a terrible disaster. The timeline snaps perfectly into place.
The board is cleared. Every piece moved exactly as the cosmic bureaucracy designed it, successfully navigating around human arrogance, catastrophic flash floods, and stubborn runaway browse. At the end of the text, Pu Songling leaves a commentary stating that heaven is not blind. All the chaotic events, all the town gossip about the older sister becoming the younger sister's subordinate, it was all just the grinding of necessary gears within a flawlessly designed cosmic machine.
It provides a profound sense of order. In our messy, chaotic reality, justice is often deferred or absent. Good people suffer and corrupt people thrive. This folklore offers the comforting, yet terrifying, assurance that the scales are ultimately balanced, that every secret intention is weighed and compensated.